This week on Barbell Shrugged, we interview Ryan Parsons.
That'll do it.
I can hear my heartbeat.
Finish the intro. Ryan Parsons is on the
Ryan
show.
Parsons, UFC trainer, manager, and Radius Club inventor. Oh. Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe. I'm standing here with Chris Moore, Doug Larson. We have CTP behind the camera, and we have traveled long and far.
About an hour up the road.
So long.
To Dana Point to hang out with Ryan Parsons. He has been managing and training fighters. You said that the first MMA fight that you managed or trained folks for was in 1998?
Well, it was the first fight I was in the corner. I
You were in the corner.
I didn't know
okay.
what I was doing there, but I was there.
I don't think
That's a
anybody,
start, right?
nobody in
Yeah.
1998 knew what they were doing there, I don't
Well,
think.
even now, there's no school you go to. You just kind of go figure it out.
Yeah.
And you were just cornering anybody. You were cornering some of the most famous guys in the world of MMA.
Yeah, the one thing I was fortunate about is I was surrounded by really talented people who got started early. So, and
Isn't that the secret?
Sounds familiar.
it is, yeah, really. I mean, if you want to learn something, really learn it. Go find the very best person in the world and copy what they do. If you copy it over and over again, you put your own spin on it, and then you're off in a different direction.
Yeah, that's your own thing.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, make sure to go to barbellshrug.com. Sign up for that newsletter, folks. Ryan, we want to talk a little bit about kind of how you put it all together. We were talking about before the show. You have like this huge wealth of knowledge. You've been around for a long time. You've been training and managing athletes, 16 years now.
And then also not just that, but you did chiropractic, right?
I have a degree in chiropractic, yeah. So that was kind of the beginning of it. I wrestled in college with Dan Henderson.
How'd that go?
Not
appeased
with Dan.
Well, you're
Well,
not the same weight class,
against
we're
right?
not the
him.
same weight class.
Because he's much larger.
Yeah, he's about 200 pounds.
Yeah.
You're all on the same team, though.
Yeah, and then
And mix it up in training a little bit, I imagine.
Yeah, you know what? I worked out with Dan for years. Never did I land a punch. I never got a takedown. It was pathetic. I can't say one positive thing I did the entire years I trained with Dan Henderson. Nothing good.
If you asked
came.
him, he'd say, "Oh, Ron, he's a good guy. He tries hard."
Well, you know, he knocked me out once. And the worst thing about getting knocked out by Dan is he followed up and went, "Man, I barely hit you." It's the worst thing that you want to hear after you want to hear, "Man, I never hit anyone like that before."
I had to really unload on your jaw. It's so rock hard.
No,
The same thing happened to me. Doug busted up my nose, and I was like, "Oh my God, that was the worst I've ever been hit." He goes, "Well, I didn't hit you very hard." I'm like, "Thanks a
it's
lot,
like,
bud."
a little respect, guys. Come on. Make him feel good. Dust him off a little bit.
You're like, "Oh man, my hand! You got to be shaking it out."
That's right.
Yeah.
I think I broke it.
Bro, you got an iron chin, man. I never.
Well, you did get the chiropractic, so the fighting,
Well,
chiropractic.
So I wrestled when they continued. This is like in 1994, 95, 96. I went to chiropractic school. Heath Sims, who's now the head MMA coach at Evolve MMA, who's a 2000 Olympian. We lived together. Dan lived with us. We would have training camps, or Randy would come down. So as I got my chiropractic degree, they all kept wrestling. Randy fought first in 1997, and then Dan.
That's Randy Couture.
Yeah, Randy Couture, and then Dan, who is the #1 U.S. wrestler, 2-time Olympian, who was making $12 grand a year. In 1998, they said, "Hey, do you want to fight next week in Brazil? If you win 3 fights in the night, you get $12,000."
Hell yeah!
So Dan,
It's a strong incentive.
yeah, it was. So Dan hopped on a flight and went to Brazil, won 3 fights, came back, and that's how his career gets started. So I continued.
he had
through.
only had wrestling training up to that point.
Yeah, Dan had no one had any other type of training there, because all the training that we do now is stuff that we've developed and taken from other people. over this, past 15 years or something. So you talk about putting it all together. It started really not knowing anything.
Yeah.
And then I took my chiropractic degree and first started with that side of the business.
Yeah.
I'd wrestled with these guys, but my strength at that point for them, they were all better wrestlers than I was chiropractic. So I would do soft tissue work, which kind of after about 2 months in chiropractic practice, I realized there's way more going on than just a bone being out of alignment.
Yeah.
So that led to a study of nutrition.
A little more than cracking.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, right? So next was nutrition. So when Randy dropped from heavyweight to light heavyweight, I kind of did a whole bunch of diet stuff back then. And then in 2004, I think it was, Rulon Gardner fought. Rulon was Olympic champion in the Sydney Olympics. It was the most televised event of the Olympic Games. He fought one time in Japan, and I trained him with it along with Dan. And then did some management stuff for Rulon and figure out, wow, I love the business side of this. I'd like to negotiate. I like putting it all together. So that's kind of how those two worlds mixed. And with that, there's been fighters who have, in Japan, dancing girls for ring entrances. So we would find the girls, help with the choreography, select music, create branding around
Renaissance
athletes.
man.
Yeah, it's kind of putting it all together. It's really a producer role with things.
Like a choreographer and everything.
Well, I worked on a movie. I worked on a movie a few years ago called Here Comes the Boom, and I didn't know what I did. I'd never seen it until I saw the producer of the movie, and I trained Kevin for that movie.
Kevin James?
Kevin James, yeah. And in it, I hired found the fighters to be in it, worked with the set designers, did a lot of the fight choreography, so worked with stunts, worked with Kevin, all these different elements of it, putting together this one final package, which was the fights that ended up in the movies. And I saw the producer work on the movie. I said, oh, my God, that's what I do. I just had never seen anyone.
Right.
Yeah, if you looked at it from the outside.
There was like a label to put on it.
Exactly,
You were just doing stuff and like, oh, that's a producer.
I followed my passions is what I did. I was interested in entertainment and sports and health and nutrition and all those things. It didn't make any sense because you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do it going back. So in that process, it kind of, the evolution of me, I saw it that time on the movie going, oh, there's someone who does this type of stuff. Works with all these different specialists and puts everything together.
Yeah.
And really that's what I do now for all the athletes that I work with. That's what I do. I make sure that everything is put together. I clear a path so they can go do what they do.
Yeah, and that's something we've talked about. Doug and I have trained MMA. Doug's actually fought MMA. I'm a good spectator.
Yeah.
And
I like to watch other people get punched as well.
But one of the things we actually draw a lot of similarities between, say, CrossFit and MMA is because in MMA you got to have a boxing coach, a wrestling coach, Muay Thai, and Jiu-Jitsu. And then CrossFit's kind of the same thing. You have weightlifting, gymnastics. You got a running coach. Maybe
you're trying to tie together a lot.
You got to tie it all together, and
competing influences and demands.
And it's one of those things. Is like, how do you plan for a fighter? And we run into the same problems with, say, CrossFitters as well. As like, you got to make this big plan for a fighter, and then you got to get those coaches to maybe even talk to each other, or maybe they won't talk to each other. Or the boxing coach feels like he needs to make the athlete feel like he has to work really hard, and then he goes to the wrestling coach an hour later, and the wrestling coach wants to beat him in the ground too. And there's this big risk of overtraining.
Well, it's not just in CrossFit or MMA, right? It's in life. So if you're a parent with 3 kids, you know this story. You live it every day, right? So, yeah, and that's a concern, especially more along the training side of things. If you do CrossFit every day, the big issue, in my opinion, maybe because I'm 43 now and I'm stiff a lot more than I was at 23.
Right. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, it's certainly. But figuring out pacing, and for me, pacing is everything.
Right.
And if you're paced correctly, it's hard to get overtrained. But when you're in the middle of training, if you have a competition coming up, or you want to lose weight, or you want to do something that inspires you to go put all this effort into work every day at what you do, you lose sight of the big picture. You have to get that involved with things. So having good coaching around, or having someone on the outside going, "Hey man," or "Hey girl, this isn't working for you right now." That's so important.
So if you're working with a bunch of guys who kind of pride themselves on being the fucking toughest guys around, and we can talk about toughness here if you want to in a second. I remember you commented on it earlier, but guys that are willing to work very, very hard. They want to be the best in the world. They want to be the best fighter in the world. They're willing to get beat to shit on a daily basis. How do you as a manager, as a coach, monitor their intensity day to day so they don't push it too much? Because they're probably willing to, but doesn't mean they should. Yeah, I'm fortunate. The guys that I work with, and females, it's not just men anymore, working hard is not the issue.
So just like you said, it's helping them pull back and realizing that more isn't always more. You can tell your coaching is not going, do it again, go harder, do more. That's a monkey can do that, right? But knowing your body, knowing your age, knowing where you are injury-wise, how far from competition, what are your overall goals, these are things that have to be considered every day. And the way that I manage it is I'm there every day. You know, if I'm not there, then there's a phone call that's made to Mel is our Muay Thai coach in San Diego, or if they lift, we do a lot of Olympic lifting now.
Cool.
You know, I make sure that their Olympic lift coach knows, hey, you know, Pat Cummings is, you know, his knee's bothering him and he trained real hard today. Or, hey, Pat was feeling great. Let's push him a little bit more.
So you're the central coach amongst all these other coaches.
Yeah.
And staying engaged, highly engaged, yeah.
You say
You
like
have to.
Do you think most MMA athletes have that central coach right now?
No,
And
I
how
mean-
much of a difference is that making?
Most training, not just MMA training, is terrible. Like, I've been to a whole bunch of MMA teams. Successful guys going, really, you guys do this? And you're that good? So clearly there's a lot of boats that you can take to
They're
to cross
successful
the ocean.
despite themselves.
Yeah, but you know, what could it be if you really got things dialed in and really gave some thought and consideration to why are you doing it? Like, I know a guy, I'm not going to say his name. He's fought in the UFC. He would come in on sparring day, go, "Man, I'm doing 10 rounds today." And I'd always ask him the same question. How many rounds is your fight? He went, 3. And I would look at him. And
Let me tell you, I sweat on the mat so I don't bleed in the streets, coach.
Yeah, it's so silly, right? And then, unfortunately, he failed the brain test and can't count backwards from 10 to 1. So it's like...
Well, how's he going to keep up with the rounds then?
Well...
I don't. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
You sort it out.
Okay,
You're
here's
like, he could finish the third rank and be like, that was 10. And go,
well,
oh,
listen,
okay.
if I say we're going to run hard for 3 minutes or run hard for 10 minutes, you're going to start out that run very different, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you have to know, again, why are you doing what you're doing? The goal is not to go fight 10 rounds in the UFC. That we'll never see that happen.
Right.
The goal is to go fight 3 rounds as hard as you can, and your pacing and energy are totally different if you're going to do that. Like, I knew this girl, she was a speed skater on the national team, 21 years old. She came to me because her neck was bothering her. And, you know, she was super muscular and a total mess. I mean, she was sore, her joints hurt, her knees hurt. And I don't know anything about speed skating, so I was asking her about her training. And she would do these long, you know, 4-hour runs and 2-hour super heavy lifts and track work and all this other stuff. I said, well, how long is a speed skating race that you do? She goes, the longest one's 5 minutes. I said, okay, and over the course of a competition, how many would you do in a day? And she goes, 5. So the most she would do is 5 5-minute goes in a day. Why are you running for 4 hours?
That's it. That's like a marathon.
It made no sense. And here's
Yeah.
my theory, and I could be wrong. All the best speed skating coaches come from Korea. And a lot of the Asians can be insecure about how we see this in Japanese MMA. They overtrain like crazy because they're afraid that they're not strong enough as a Westerner. They're naturally bigger, so they make up for it by being super mentally tough and training really, really hard. So you have a coach who came over here now, maybe from a Korean. This is just a theory, right?
Right.
You train
right.
super hard. You came over here. We apply that same mentality to athletes who aren't built like that. Who that's not how they should be training. And all of a sudden, you have a host of issues. She didn't make the Olympics, and her career was over. So for me, extending careers not just so you can, if Pat's here, Pat can compete 2 more years. It could be $1 million for him. But also, if we are smart.
And also, when he's 45, he's walking still.
Well, that's the second part. I have a background in healthcare. I want to make sure that your brain works and you can move on to other things in your life.
Yeah. I mean, it really is possible to train for 20 years, even in something like the UFC. You just mentioned Dan Henderson. He's fighting next month or something like that? He's fighting
He's fighting tomorrow.
That's pretty,
Yeah,
that's
tomorrow?
pretty extraordinary.
Is it tomorrow?
44, the oldest active UFC fighter, 44 years old right now. Randy competed to 47.
Yeah.
So-
I saw him
they've been
come
in the UFC
back.
for like
That was-
20 years.
That was incredible.
Yeah. So you can do it. And I think, my mom's a yoga instructor. She said something really interesting to me. She goes, train today like you're going to be training 20 years from now. Because when you're young, if anyone's super young here, and your warm up is like mine, which is you did this a couple times. Like, you ready to go? Let's go, right? That catches up to you. And I know you're 20 and you're never going to get old. But if it happens, if you're lucky enough.
The shroud of invincibility falls for us all, doesn't it?
This-
When
see
you get in your
this-
30s, like, shit, man, things are hurting.
I see that all the time. People want to get strong like today.
Yeah.
They start lifting. They want to lift more weight. They want to put one more plate on the barbell.
And they beat themselves up over it.
And they
want to
make a 25-pound jump in a single week. And I'm like, you've only got the rest of your life to get strong.
Yeah.
Like if you were to just put like 5 pounds on the bar once a month for 5 years,
Yeah.
you'd be breaking world records. So that obviously isn't what people do.
That's that's not our society, right?
So slow it down. Yeah.
We want it now.
Yeah.
We want our food fast. We want things to happen fast. Everything has to happen right now. But that catches up to you.
You'll make a lot of progress over the course of a month or two, and then everyone will be giving you all this this constant appreciation and encouragement, and they'll make you feel like you're doing a really good job because you put 30 pounds on your back squat, not knowing you're going to be hurt in 2 weeks. Right?
Yeah, people.
So you're way up, and then you're way down for a long time.
Yeah, you overestimate what you can do in a month and underestimate what you can do in a year.
Yeah. What do you do with athletes who are in their 20s? They're fighters. These are the most aggressive people on earth, right? These are the most testosterone-filled. I mean, they're willing to go in a ring with somebody else and just pound it out.
Yeah.
How do you get them to slow down?
You talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to figure out what motivates and inspires somebody. Everybody's different. But talking to someone goes a long way. And if you help them, especially at a young age, it'd be nice if I had someone to do this for me, right? Is you educate them from the beginning and go, listen, here's where you are. Here's all your strengths. Here's where I think we can improve upon. This is where I want to take you. This is where I want to go with you together. And we head in this direction. And along the way, you gently nudge them forward or pull them back. Nothing needs to be that dramatic about it. But
so psychology is the most important piece.
Yeah, if your mental game isn't there, you see it all the time. Someone gets famous in the UFC and they flip out, or getting famous is very difficult. To maintain any type of success over a long period of time, you have to make sure that your values are in order, that you have control of your emotional state, you learn how to communicate, and you figure out what's important and move in that direction. And the stuff that's holding you down, whether that's people or a certain business, whatever you're doing, is learning how to say no and get rid of that.
To be that involved with some of these fighters, does that mean you have to take on less fighters than some other people potentially to give that level of guidance?
In my opinion, yes. There's now in MMA, there's these big super camps where you go and there's 80 really good fighters, and there's a lot of benefits to it, right? You have great workout partners.
Hell of an energy in a place like that, I imagine.
Yeah, there is. But the downside is that chances are you're not going to get a lot of attention. So the athletes that I work with, they get a ton. They can call me whenever they want.
We saw you today. You stayed, I don't know when the session ended, but at least 15, 20 minutes just watching these two guys spar, carefully making observations, being patient, watching carefully, staying the extra miles, being engaged, getting all the data you could.
Yeah, and I think that the rapport and relationship you build with that type of energy that you put in, I think it pays off in the long run. It's riskier, right? Because you don't have a whole large stable of fighters. If someone gets hurt or leaves or does whatever,
right,
it's a lot riskier. But not really in this world for the money. I just really enjoy the development of it and taking someone and really changing the direction of their life.
So as a coach with that style, does that mean you have a lot less turnover than some of the big camps would have, where you get fewer guys that would come in just for the 8 weeks before their fight
to quickly
train
the
last bit of their camp and then they're out of there? Do you tend to hold on to people for a long time?
The athletes I do work with, we work together over a period of years. And for me, that's real important too, because that coach-athlete or manager-athlete relationship is a dynamic one that's always changing, right? It's kind of like relationship with anyone, but it's magnified in this sport. So I think building that relationship and helping them go different directions, and part of my job too is to help them develop relationships with other coaches. It can't all be me, right? It's like maybe in CrossFit.
There's no scarcity mindset here. You want them to engage and get as much feedback as possible. It helps them.
Yeah, I want them to have relationships with other coaches. I want them to train everything they need to do to keep things fresh. And my job, again, is to keep the big picture in mind, and everything that we're doing is heading in this direction.
How many athletes are you managing now?
Now I have 5.
5. That's not very many.
No, but I train 3 others.
I was thinking it'd be at least 2 or 3 times that much.
No, it kind of comes and goes. I think my ideal number would probably be 8 to 10.
Yeah.
But it has to be the right person.
Yeah. What do you look like in a young buck?
The first thing I can tell if someone's good by the way they walk in the door. I'm almost never wrong with that. Doesn't mean that they can go all the way, but I know the moment someone walks in, I'll find myself, it could be a whole room of people, like you saw today, and I'll find myself just watching 1 or 2 people. And I know, okay, there's something. I may not even know what it is. It's like, finding something you have some type of attraction to.
Yeah.
It's just this feeling that you get. And then you have to evaluate a whole bunch of other things. With Pat's a great example. I knew the moment he walked in the gym, he trained with Lil Nogueira for the first time. I knew he was going to be good, but I didn't know wrestlers, a lot of times when you hit them, they don't like it because there's no striking in wrestling.
Right. This is Pat Durkin for the audience.
Yeah, so at King's MMA, I brought him up there for a sparring day, and there's this guy there who weighs 300 pounds, and for 2 minutes is the toughest man on the... He's just flying knees.
Yeah.
And he hits Pat with a 3-punt combination. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Switch kicks him right in the face, and Pat's response, he goes, ronk, and throws a right hand right down the middle. And Rafael Cordero goes, I give him my stamp. And we don't want to do that a lot because it's really dangerous. Like, as little impact as you can take to your head in training, the better. But you have to figure that out. If you're going to get in your underwear and go fight in a cage for your lunch money, you better make sure that when you get hit, that this is a place you want to be. If you hit me like that, I want to go home. I don't belong in there.
Yeah, you got to be fully committed to this pursuit.
Yeah, and it's a small number of people who can do that.
Yeah.
For those of you who aren't fight fans, who don't fully appreciate it, that walk to the cage is so much. It is so heavy. There's so much going on. And then the moment where the banners come back and you're walking back to your corner and you see your fighter you spent years sometimes just standing there across from another really tough guy with these little gloves on. You have no idea what's going to...
Who the hell knows what's going to happen in that situation?
Yeah, and everything is on the line in every fight. It is a level of intensity that's hard to appreciate unless you've been there.
Yeah. Especially in a stadium that's probably just loud as shit, and you got 50,000 people looking at you live, plus millions of viewers on TV.
Yeah. It's an interesting...
But that's why you do it, right? That rush, and to see when your boys or gals go out and do really well, execute the plan, do their best and all that shit. I mean, it must be a hell of a rush.
It is, yeah. It's you either leave there as high as you can be or as low as possible. I mean, when you lose a fight, it's, everyone goes and that's the end of it. In the locker room after a big loss, it is...
Yeah.
It's like going to a wake.
Yeah, it's tough to watch.
You never know what to do. There's nothing to say.
When you hang your heart and your soul and everything you've got, you put into it. I mean, these guys are living, I guess, they're getting up at crack of dawn, going to bed late. Their life, everything they do, they are fighters.
Well, to me, I have my two favorite type of entertainments or fighters are fighters and singers. And to me, they're very similar. Because to do it properly, you have to emote. You have to give everything that you have, and you have to put it out there. And the fighters who do that attract lots of fans, whether they win or lose. You see it like if you watch I love The Voice. That's my favorite show. But you can see the person who goes out there when they sing. It's the emotion.
Something real about that.
You feel it, yeah. So
Till there's no holding back.
You can't, no. And I think that's why we love... we love fighters because it transcends any type of culture or language. It's very basic. If you're not a fight fan, I would imagine you have some type of visceral reaction to it. Where if it's negative or positive, no one's kind of in the middle about it.
If you were in Starbucks and a fight broke out, you would turn away from your latte and look at it instinctually. Go, what? Well, oh, shit. And you would not take your eyes off. We've been to fights where a fight broke out in the crowd, and everybody looked away from the fight and looked in the crowd at the fight. Like, fights happen.
Even the fighters in the ring they're kind of dancing around. They're kind of looking over their shoulder at the fight in the crowd. Wondering what's going to happen.
There, dude? Who's going to win? Oh, wait, we're fighting.
I don't know who said. They said if there's on one corner a baseball game, another a soccer game, a third one a basketball game, in the fourth corner there's a fight. Where's everyone standing? It's a very natural, instinct-driven type of a endeavor, and I think that's why it's so fascinating.
Yeah,
it keeps me coming back. I still can't figure it out.
Well, I mean,
I can't figure the game out.
Well, I guess there's no hiding behind any bullshit in the ring. Right?
There's not. No.
Yeah.
You
learn the real deal pretty fast about somebody.
Let's take a break real quick. When we come back, Ryan's going to teach us his secret move for winning any bar fight.
Okay, I have that.
Hey guys, Mike Bledsoe here from the Barbell Shrugged podcast, here to do a technique WOD on the Snatch. The Snatch is my favorite movement of all time. Not just because of the name, but because it is a full body movement. It's very athletic. It takes a lot of precision, finesse. It is probably the hardest thing that you could master in the world of fitness. If you don't know what a Snatch is, Alex, my assistant here, will show you exactly what a snatch looks like. Give us a snatch, Alex. So some of you may be thinking, well, that was easy. He just grabbed a bar and he threw it over his head, and it looked silly. But a lot of you, if you're familiar with CrossFit or the sport of weightlifting, are very familiar with that and understand how difficult it can be. So we're going to go over the movement, break it down just a little bit. I'm going to start with the starting position. So this is not a deadlift. A lot of people make the common mistake that they should set up like a deadlift and they bring their shins right up to the bar. That is definitely what you should not do. So for most people, that's going to be, the bar is going to start over the ball of their foot, all right? So a little bit forward of midfoot, just as Alex is set up here. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. As you get more into practice, you'll find exactly what position works best for you. It's going to depend, it's going to vary from person to person, little by little. All right, so he's going to start standing there. He's now going to reach down. He's going to actually push his knees forward and let his shins come to the bar, all right? So again, not like a deadlift. If you're doing a deadlift, your hips would be higher. So Alex has his hips lower here. Notice that he has his shoulders in front of the bar here. So if I'm looking at this arm, it's almost straight up and down. What he doesn't want to do is sit back towards, you don't want to sit back anymore. You don't want to look like that. You want to bring your shoulders in front of the bar. This back is going to stay nice and tight here. And then he's also going to be engaging his lats a little bit right here. So as he comes up, he's going to be using his shoulders to keep that bar close to his body. So we're going to do the first half of the snatch. So Alex is going to lift this bar up and bring it up to his hips. And so as he's here, again, even right here at the hips, his shoulders are slightly in front of the bar. His weight is towards his heels here. So if you were to think about where your weight should be, it's at the front of your heels here. All right, let's go back to the floor. So that's what it's going to look like. You're going to squeeze the bar off the floor. You don't want to yank it off the floor, which is another common mistake. So he's going to squeeze it off the floor. He's going to get above the knees. He's going to touch the bar to his hips. And then he's going to jump and pull himself underneath the bar. So he's going to let that bar, he's going to squeeze that bar off the ground. As it comes up, he's going to explode and jump up. That bar is going to meet him at his hips. And it's going to get over his head. The biggest problem most people have is keeping that bar close and the bar meeting their hips, all right? Once you've got that, now you really need to focus on pulling underneath the bar. A real common mistake is that there's a lot of hips. No, we have to edit that out. One of the things that people do is they find they can really meet the bar really well with their hips, and they find they're snapping that, and then they're really lazy about getting underneath. And so what you really want to do is make sure that after you master that hip extension and really firing that bar up off of your hips, that you then remember to involve your arms just as much as you did with your hips. So this is much of an emphasis on pulling underneath as it is with pulling up. So think about pulling up with your hips and underneath with your arms and shoulders. It's one continuous pull. All right, so remember that and watch Alex. He keeps the bar nice and close as it goes past his chest, past his face, and overhead. Hopefully this is going to help you move forward in your adventures and it's an adventure. It's an adventure. In your snatch adventures. All right. I can't even think now. For more information about how to perfect your snatch, damn it. All right, for more information on the snatch, go to barbellshrugged.com. We've got more technique videos, technique WOD videos, breaking down the snatch, the smaller components of the lifts.
What Mike's trying to say is that this is kind of a general overview, and we have other videos on technique WOD where we break down the movement into its component parts. We go over like the first pull, the second pull, the transition, the catch phase, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're more advanced and you want to have more details on each specific part of the lift and you want mobility drills or other weightlifting drills, I feel like I'm just like really close to you right now. And you have more weight, you
got to talk into the microphone.
I felt weird. I was like right here on
all right. If you want any more information on all that other stuff, go to barbellshrugged.com. And we're back with Ryan Parsons. I kind of jokingly said you were going to show us your secret trick to winning any bar fight.
Well, first off, I don't get in bar fights. I've been in 2 fights my whole life. But I have this friend of mine who's a Krav Maga guy. Little guy, he's a stand-up comedian too, and he told me we started talking about fighting. He goes, I've been in over 100 street fights. I said, well, that means you're an asshole. If you've been in more than 3 fights in your life, that means you're an asshole. That's just...
I mean, you started it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So what he would do, and he's a little guy, and he would do this. He would start like this, and he would go, doink.
Oh, my God.
And he would back, like, hold your hand up. Like where your nose would be. He would do like this and go...
Just smack your
and
nose.
he goes, if someone smacks your nose and goes, rah, rah. And he goes, I hit him on the tip of their nose, and he goes, then I would go crazy for 30 seconds and usually throw up after. Boy, you're such a...
By then, usually you're getting broken up, and so you can go full bore.
30 seconds, that's what he would do.
That's all you need, really.
Yeah,
I don't think I've been
Do you give him the raccoon eyes? I heard what... is it Henso Gracie? Tell a story about why you give guys raccoon eyes. Like he got mugged one time, or tried to get mugged. He took the guy down, punched him. He follows the guy back a couple of blocks, finds him, and then goes, when you find a guy like that, you get him on the ground. You got to beat him up real good so he doesn't do that, because you're going to go find an old lady and just fucking, you give him raccoon eyes. What's that? You pop him right in both eyes, getting the 2 worst fucking black eyes ever, and you fucking hit him real good and smash him, and he never does that shit again.
Yeah. I'm not a street fighter.
We want to talk about how to taper for. How do you set up like a training program overall? I mean, when
Sure.
you have so many skills, how do you segment the different skills? How do you integrate them all, and how do you get that taper leading up to it?
Yeah, I would imagine if you're a CrossFitter, you run into the same problem that a lot of MMA guys do, in that there's not enough time in the day to train enough of everything.
Doing too much.
Right, you can't do enough cardio, you can't lift enough, you can't stretch enough, you can't do all this stuff, your body will break down. So in MMA, it's the same thing. And we have to kind of choose the direction that you're going to go based on your current skill set, where you're at injury-wise, who's your next opponent, when your next opponent is. So now for, say, 8 weeks out of a fight camp, I do a written training plan. So on a spreadsheet, we have the dates. Every day is written down, times of day, and then we map a schedule out for the 8 weeks before we start. And it never works.
Well, planning is essential, but you got to throw it out, right?
Yeah, because I've never had one play out like we wrote it the whole time. But if you take the time to do that, again, you have an idea of where we are big picture wise. We color code weeks based on intensity. So if, we're gonna start, ease into it, we're gonna push, we're gonna pull back, we're gonna go harder, and then we're gonna taper, and then come fight week you go.
Does it feel like the colors help the athlete kind of?
Yeah, that's a recent thing.
You can tell them we're going to back it off, but if it's all in yellow or red, then they know not to go.
Yeah,
it's a little more obvious.
And I think it helps them kind of get a sense of what the next 8 weeks are going to be like, because it's really, really hard. If you have a competition, anything coming up, you start focusing on it, you're thinking about it, your sleep's a little bit different. All these things start to happen. If you have a plan that goes, okay, hey, we've thought this out. You know, we've thought our technique out. We've thought our game plan out. We've thought our training structure out. Here's what we're going to do. And then that's great for future reference. So if you felt really good in that last fight, you can go, okay, well, this worked. Here's a couple things we need to tweak. Because whenever I finish the training camp, I go, damn, I learned this, and I don't know how I ever did this job without it.
Right.
You pick up these things along the way, and then they get dumped back into the next one. So I really like to break everything down, think everything out, and then not be married to what it is. Be flexible enough to go, okay, here's how I think we're going to go, and within this we have lots of leeway and free time.
You're documenting the changes, so they go, okay, when I felt awesome, we may not have stuck with the original plan, but we documented those changes, so we can stick with that next time.
Yep. And the nice thing, too, like I have a guy competing soon, and he got sick a week ago. So he missed a day of training. But for him, it was really nice because he looked down and said, hey, man, listen, this is built in. We know that you're going to we'll miss a day here. You'll get sick. This will happen. You have to go here. It's all built into his schedule. And look at this. We're fine. And you could see he was nice and calm after that because he knew we had thought of all these things. And as far as tapering, depending on the guy, depending on the age, depending on how hard the camp was, we'll do a taper anywhere from 5 to 10 days. Older athletes, you have to taper more. Pat, for his last fight, which was his best performance, we did a much longer taper with him. And kind of figuring out, Pat's a guy that will go, but more is less with him. He does better with that.
He's 34.
34,
and he's been wrestling since the beginning of time for him.
Yeah.
So he's got a big training history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kylan Kearns, a female fighter, she just debuted in November. She won Fight of the Night but lost the fight. And she just had a 5-month camp. She thought she was going to fight. Her opponent got hurt. And all of a sudden, what we thought was going to be the short period of time turned out to be 5 months of nonstop training.
Oh, wow.
She was also 20. She's 23. So I had to kind of figure out her first fight in the UFC. A lot of firsts with this one, right?
Yeah.
So I did a bit longer of a taper with her too, just because she had been going for so long. And I think more than anything was mentally just kind of over it. Like, all right, let's just go get this done.
Yeah, when you're going that long, it's hard to stay in the game.
Yeah, it's hard to keep that focus.
So in a sport where the whole goal of the sport basically is to hurt somebody, how do you keep your fighters from being hurt all the time?
Recovery is a big thing, and I write recovery into their training programs.
So you raise up, it's like this is as important as the dose of training stimulus.
Absolutely, it's the flip side of the coin. Like, people never consider the fact if you're not sleeping enough, if you're not eating properly, if you're not doing all these things, and you can't expect yourself over the long period. In the short period of time, anything can happen, right? You can have a crackhead go win the lottery and get rich, but over the long period of time, he's going to lose all that money, right?
Yeah.
So same thing here. You have to kind of, again, have an understanding of where you are, where you're going, and how to get there. And for me, recovery is big. And there's probably 4 or 5 things that we do.
Yeah. What are your top recovery methods you utilize with success?
I like soft tissue work. I think that's really good. And we have a couple massage therapists that I know well, that work well, that will come to our guy's house and look after him. And we communicate well, too. I ask them how they doing, and they give me their feedback. One thing I love is a Normatec. And if you train hard, you need to go buy a Normatec. They're like, the price of them is a quarter what they used to be. They're about $1,500-$1,600, and there's these pneumatic pants that you put on. There's a compressor unit.
Oh yeah, I've seen these.
So start squeezing your feet and your calves and your knees, and they even make hip ones now, and they make arm ones. And the first time I used one was maybe 5 years ago, and I wasn't in great shape. I ran for 55 minutes, including stairs. I had squatted that day, which I hadn't squatted in ages. I killed my
train
legs.
wreck yourself.
Yeah, it was really stupid to do. And I put these Normatec pants on, and I pumped for 2 hours in front of the TV that night. I woke up the next morning with no legs pain whatsoever. My ass, because the pants came up to here, my butt was really, really sore. Nothing else was.
It's all squeezing the tissues back into circulation.
Yeah, the lymphatic drainage happens. Your blood gets back to your heart. It really made me think soreness is maybe nothing more than inflammation problems.
What's happening? Is it just pumping the blood back, or what's the mechanism at work
when
here?
your heart squeezes, that arterial blood is very strong. It's like it just got squeezed out of your heart, and it goes through your arteries. When it comes back to your venous return, it's very low pressure. And the way that it gets back is through muscle contraction. That's why movement is so good, right? And the valves in your veins are one way, so the blood gets pumped up, and there's a one-way valve that doesn't let it come back again. So through this action, it just assists that blood back to your heart. It increases your lymphatic drainage, and you feel amazing.
I guess like squeezing the last bit of toothpaste out of a tube, kind of like inches it back up to. Yeah.
Is it like a beat, or is it just squeezing your legs, or is it like a rhythmic?
No, it's rhythmic. So it starts with your feet, and then there's 5 sections. So the feet go first, then the calf. The feet's let go. The knee comes in. The calf lets go.
So you can kind of feel
it like happens in waves.
Well, I'll put you guys in one before you leave.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I hadn't been able to run in probably 5 months. I got a new pair of shoes, which changed so much for me. So that's another thing. Making sure your gear is up to date. You have to be doing that. And I was doing snatches and other Olympic lifts in running shoes. So I broke down. I spent $200 on a pair of.
I saw them out there.
It's a nice way with the shoes.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, give me the best shoes. Everyone told me I have them for 10 years. So and all of a sudden the foot pain's gone. Get a new pair of running shoes. The knee pain's gone. The Normatec, which I had loaned to a fighter, just came back. I pumped up now. I feel like $1 million right now.
There you go, man.
Yeah, so that's another big thing. If you're there, I think it's Normatec, MVP, NORMATEC. I have no affiliation with the company, but it's amazing. And if you're training hard, make that investment. I promise you, it'll make a dramatic difference.
You got a gym owner, you got 5, 6, 7 athletes. It becomes really like a no-brainer.
I know that San Francisco CrossFit, they had a couple hanging out in the lobby. Like athletes will train and they'll stick their legs right in them.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was what it was called. I didn't pay much attention to it.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then we're big on.
How much did one of those run?
I think now the price dropped way down. They're like $1,500-$1,600 for a unit in the legs, and then if you want to get the hips or the arms, that's a little bit more. But if you get a couple buddies that you can share it with, or it's a lifesaver for us.
Yeah,
wow,
that's a good idea. Sharing it with some friends.
Yeah, we can't do camps without those now.
So the 10 days or so that you're tapering, what's that look like? You don't just stop training altogether. You just
no.
How does that taper look?
The further you go into a fight camp, the more narrow the focus gets. So at that 10-day point, like what you saw today with with Tom. Tom's fighting a week from tomorrow in the UFC. So now it was timing. It was a technical review. So he went about 30 minutes, a decent pace. He was exploding well, nothing hard contact. And the goal at that point is two things: physical recovery and mental recovery, because you get worn down during a fight camp.
Right.
So the physical recovery, if you maintain well through a whole fight camp, if you've done appropriate, you've been in cold plunges, you've got soft tissue work and chiropractic adjustments, you're pumping your legs, you're eating healthy. If you have good training, didn't get injured, then a lot of it's the mental recovery. So you want to make sure that when they go in there, they're confident, they're feeling good, they're happy, they're excited to be there. And a cool thing that happens during a taper, the fight week, everyone just kind of gets beaten down a little bit, and then taper time, everyone starts to come up again.
The mood improves and the hormone profile improves.
It changes totally. And then by fight night, hopefully, if you've done things correctly, by the time that comes, you're just like they're caged, ready to come out and get after it.
Yeah.
I know I've been at parties before with kind of casual fans that have never done any martial arts training whatsoever, and they ask me questions like when people are backstage, are they just like fucking scared out of their minds, and then when they walk around the corner, they put on their mean face and they walk to the cage? How does that happen for guys in the UFC?
There's a wide range. Some people who feel nothing but total confidence, excited to be there. Other people who are scared to death. Like I know a pretty well-known fighter when he fought in Pride. He'd be in Pride, a lot of times they would have, Pride was a fight organization in Japan. Sometimes the dressing rooms would just have a curtain between you. Hear someone throwing up back there. So yeah, people feel fear is an essential part of it. To think that those guys don't feel fear is just not reasonable. It's not. Yeah. It's a great emotion if you know how to use it.
Isn't it the best way actually to view fear is like it's not like a barrier saying no, you don't do this, you're gonna get hurt. It's more like this is an intense situation. Be as aware and alive as you can. You're going into it. It's like a stimulating emotion.
It can be
a preparation emotion,
or it can be the opposite of that. It can be debilitating. Yeah. So how we come back to emotional mastery at that point. How well can you manage your emotional state under the most stressful times? Because listen, it's a beautiful day. We're hanging out here. We don't have to spend any time or energy managing emotions, but the moment, whether if you're a mother or a father, or if you're going for your first, CrossFit competition, whatever it is for you that causes you stress, those are the times that matter. And that's what you have to get really, really good at, is mastering in times of turmoil. How well can you keep things nice and steady?
You got any advice on how to reach that mastery?
I have no idea.
Well, I think
there's find it out on your own, folks.
There's three components to mastering any emotional state. The first is you told me, hey, I pulled a chair up. They said, no, we're standing for this podcast, because how you stand, how you use your body will change your physical state. It's the quickest way to change how you're feeling is to change how you're moving your body.
Yeah.
So that's the big one. There's a great TED Talk. Maybe you could find it and post it.
It was on testosterone and posture.
This woman, yeah?
Yeah.
It was amazing. They said if you stand in this power position for 2 minutes, your testosterone increases. So if you think
That's
of
why
that,
I walk around my neighborhood like this. It's funny. Everyone in the trailer park thinks I'm crazy.
Actually, the first person that ever told me that was Robert Fallis at Team Quest, which you started Team Quest, right? Or you named it or something?
I came up with the name of Team Quest, a long time ago. Yeah, but that's the big thing. So if you're feeling whatever you're feeling, like depression, how to depress people, they're kind of hunched over. Things like that. It's like crying. If you need to stop crying, look up. I learned that once, and I had a chiropractic office. Yeah, you can't cry looking up. It's possible. So
Doug, say something mean to me. Call me a fat little girl, so I'll look up and see if I can stop crying.
Pansy little bitch.
It works.
It works.
Well, this woman, I had this office in Australia, and I had a glass windows right on the main street on this town, and she steps out of her car, sprains her ankle, falls down, she's crying. And I'm like 26 years old, super intense. And she's got two little kids with her, and she won't stop crying. Her husband's home. So I walked out the door, came over to her, I said, look up. And she wouldn't pay attention. I said, look up. And I grabbed her head, and I went up, and she stopped crying like this. It was like someone turned a faucet off. It was fascinating. So it's a great example of how you use your body will change your emotional state. It will change everything that's going on. The second one is what you focus on. So if you focus on, oh my God, what's he going to do to me? And I don't know what's going to happen. Or if you focus on, hey, I'm absolutely prepared. I'm ready for this moment. There's nothing that's going to stop me. That type of focus creates a different emotional state in your body. And the third one's the language that you use. And the trio of those three together. So if you're using self-defeating language, or if you're using language that kind of builds you up, that will change things. So if you can learn, if you find yourself getting angry, if you find yourself, losing your shit sometimes, change how you're standing your body. Open your head up, lift your chest up, take a deep breath in. That alone can often stop that cascade of emotions from continuing spiraling out of.
Wow.
I've heard people say that the more space you take up, the more confident you are likely to feel. The more kind of shrouded in like this you are versus like kind of like standing like taking up a lot of space, the more confident you automatically feel. Like little things like that. That's kind of what you're saying?
Those little things make all the difference. And the cool thing is that it doesn't apply to MMA or CrossFit. It applies to every area of your life, every moment of every day.
Human.
Yeah, so if you learn to master these skills here, if you're smart, you'll start applying them in other areas of your life too. If you're a parent, or if you're in a relationship, or if you have a business, these things can make a big difference in the quality of those relationships and ultimately the quality of your life.
Yeah.
So I've heard with the UFC versus Pride was run in a totally different manner than the UFC. And every time I hear people tell stories about being over at Pride, they're always some wild fucking crazy story.
Well, there's a bunch of Japanese gangsters running it.
Yeah. You got any crazy Pride stories? Did you go over there a lot?
Like 40 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that a yes then?
Yeah, what's the craziest shit you saw?
I don't know if there's anything that crazy. It was just that the culture of it was very different. I mean, most UFC fights, they like to give you 8 or 10 weeks to get ready. Pride would routinely call 2 weeks before a fight. You're gonna fight Nogueira in 2 weeks, and you gotta kind of go okay. And they paid in cash too.
If you turn down the fight,
yeah, I've heard
if you
that.
turn down the fight, they won't call you back up. So
It depends on the guy, but
was there a lot of pressure to fight?
There's always a lot of pressure to fight. I mean, if you're a fighter, that's the business, right? And if you were in
Fighters
Pride,
fight.
yeah, if you were in Pride, that's where you wanted to be. They were bigger than UFC at that time.
Yeah, they were the biggest organization.
Yeah,
they did pay in cash. We've heard some crazy stories.
I've heard they just hand blocks of money to people when they win.
Dan won a tournament over there called the King of Kings in like 2000, and they paid him $200,000 in $100 bills, which is like that big.
Yeah.
I know.
I heard guys just like go and go get in the taxi and go back to their hotel with a big block of money.
Yeah, we didn't know what to do with it. We went to a bank thinking, I guess we'll wire it. And
or the greatest night at a strip club you ever had.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was all everything was cash over there. It was a very different model of how to do business.
Amazing while it lasted.
Yeah, if you had the good fortune to attend a Pride event, they were spectacular. I think the biggest one I went to is 75,000 people at the Tokyo Dome. And when fights happen, it's quiet. Like that was the biggest thing. I would corner mostly in Japan, where you can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because the audience will only cheer if something good happens.
They're in such reverence of what's going on, right?
Yeah, they really appreciate what was happening in the fights. But you could have a conversation. Like I remember, okay, grab his wrist, posture up. Good, you broke his nose, hit him again. Like this
Go for the nose
and
again.
the fighter can hear you.
Yeah, because you're right there. And it's also not in a cage. It was in a ring.
Right.
So a ring is more intimate in some ways because there's only a few ropes separating the action from you. But a cage is a better place to have fights for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. What is it? When you're down in that cage, you feel like the world around kind of fades out, and you just feel like it's just you and that guy in there. I mean, all that you talk about the noise and the intensity and that cathartic moment when you walk in the ring. And then I imagine is it like? And
I'm not the guy to ask that question to. I've never been in there. I know a lot of people will give you a much better answer than I would.
I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah.
What are some other recovery methods? You covered the. I can't remember
massage,
the name
sauna.
So, massage, I think chiropractic can be beneficial.
Yeah.
I think a cold plunge is great. I don't know what the research. I think last time Andy told me the research wasn't good about that. I ignore research I don't like the answers to. So
Andy
sounds familiar.
Yeah. I just like right now our pool, we have a pool here and the heater's not on. So it's like 53 degrees. That's right in that sweet spot of good cold plunge.
Yeah.
So we go up there and I did one last night, had a cold plunge, convinced my daughter to jump in up to her neck. Talking about mental toughness with her.
Yeah. I feel better after jumping in the ocean. It's about 60 degrees.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's how I feel. But if that's actually reducing inflammation or whatever, I guess that's what's being debated. I have no idea.
Well, if you think it helps you, maybe it helps you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. But
so those are the big ones. Obviously, nutrition is huge. Water intake is big. All the basic stuff there. I mean, nutrition, it can be as complicated as you want to make it, but you know what to eat. Come on.
You know what's healthy and what's not.
You could look for more complicated, nuanced, fancy, novel recovery methods, but if diet, sleep, mental mindset, stress is reduced, you got 99.9% of the fight won.
You said the most important one that I neglected was sleep. You look at the mountain of research. If you don't sleep properly, you hear about. I sleep 3 hours a night. Probably not.
Well, we talked with Kirk Parsons. He said, we talked about if you raise your hand and increase your posture, testosterone is affected. He said he could take a healthy male, deprive them of sleep one night, maybe by just an hour or so, 2 hours. So it wasn't like one stressful night. He said I could drop your testosterone 30% or more, just like that, just instantly.
When my son was born, he's 3.5. We had finished filming the movie Here Comes the Boom. We were staying in Boston at a hotel that was connected to Mass General Hospital, which is where he was going to go. So my wife and daughter at the time were there. We did 3 night shoots. So we shot from about 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I did that 3 nights. Didn't really sleep because I'm in one hotel room. Got home the last night. 2 hours later, my wife said, "Okay, we're ready to have a baby."
Oh, man.
So, of course, he comes like 14 hours later. By the time he came out, I hadn't slept in 4 days, and I was crazy. I mean, I'm not even going to tell you what I was saying and thinking at the time, but I was a legitimate crazy person because I was so sleep deprived. That's how they turn prisoner POWs. You want to turn someone, deprive them of sleep.
Yeah.
You can break anyone very, very quickly. So as far as recovery comes, if you're one of those people who, let's say you train CrossFit and you compete, and you got to work a job, and you got some other social and family responsibilities, on top, things catch up to you. And you have to make sure that you really got to be honest with yourself and evaluate how much energy you're putting in, how much rest that you're getting, and you have to adjust your training to compensate for that.
In some cases, it would be more valuable to skip your workout altogether and just go take a nap.
I have guys within the training camps that we plan. I know that I'm going to go, "Hey, man, it's Wednesday. Take the day off today. Or let's go light today. Go get out of here. Go relax. Go see a movie tonight."
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed what that will do for people.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's sometimes hard as the athlete to accept that advice, though. It's like, man,
as an
the fight's
athlete,
so close.
If you're going to be good, then you have to learn how to be coachable. And that is a very, very difficult skill for some people, and some people never get it.
That's more important than being tough.
I don't know if it's more important, but it's an essential skill that you have to go. The more coachable you are, the more open you are, the further you're going to go. If you're a guy who knows everything and you're going to do it your way, I've seen it, and I've never seen that work out.
Well, maybe the only path for that kind of individual is to go out, give it a go, because you're going to do it probably, and then learn from the mistakes and hopefully pull it back in. Apply those lessons learned to other people, help other people. Maybe some people just have to make a mistake or two.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we could go around and spend the next 10 days telling stories of all our mistakes, right? Everyone does it, but for me, the worst way to learn something is to figure it out yourself. The best way is to find a master at something, go to him, and do exactly what he or she does.
Yeah.
That's any success I've had in my life is because of that. I found the very best people. I copied what they did. I said what they did. That's what I did with chiropractic. I found for me, when I finished chiropractic school, chiropractic didn't work for me. I had found a doctor named Dr. Richet in Scottsdale, California. Went in there and said, "Listen," he adjusted me. I'd never been adjusted like that before. And I said, "I need you to teach me what you know." And he said no, and I refused to leave. Looked him in the eye, said, "Listen, I'm not going to leave here until you agree to teach me." Got a job as a busboy in a restaurant. When I finished chiropractic school, spent 6 months with him, and it changed my whole life.
Wow.
Because I found
That's the key, yeah.
That's the key, because I could have spent 10 years trying to figure it out. Maybe I would have got there, maybe not. It's a complete waste of time to figure things out yourself.
And obviously the key, I think people they don't want to maybe try that. They can't. They're scared of letting go of the good thing they have in order to go take the chance. So you had each step along the way. There was no necessarily a reason for you to try the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Chiropractic's going good. Let me abandon that and take a shit job just so I can have opportunity to learn something more. But that opens up a whole new realm of opportunity for you if you just let go of this other shit that you're holding on to. Yeah,
it's very difficult to do, but once you do it, you go, "Oh, that wasn't that big a deal."
That's some of the best advice I think has been dropped on this show. Thank you.
I got more of that.
We'll save it for next episode.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll squeeze you every drop. Just
All right.
more
that
time.
wisdom.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Is there where should people go to find you? Online?
Well, the latest company that I have is called Radius Wraps, which is Radius Wraps, WRAPS.com. And it's a hand wrap and glove that we designed for MMA that we tested with Dr. Andy Galpin. And
a familiar face.
Yes, it reduces a crazy amount of impact force on your hands. So if you're out there and you like punching things, you really should be using this. If you get punched, we found that it can actually reduce the amount of head trauma that you take. So go to radiusstraps.com, buy some. If you don't like punching things, we have these awesome T-shirts. So I got some for everybody. Go there. If not, say hello. If you're a trainer or whatever, you got some cool stories. I'd love to hear it. You can send me an email, ryan@ryanparsons.com.
Sweet.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. It was a blast, man.
Okay, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye.
Join the conversation every week after the episode over at barbellshrugged.com. This is also where you'll find new episodes of Barbell Shrugged, Technique Wad, Nuggets and Pearls, Barbell Business, Get Change, plus new articles every day on our daily blog, written by us, guests of the show, and some of the biggest names in strength and conditioning. So, go there and leave a comment now.
Oh my gosh, wow, that's so cool. Yay, that's so awesome.
Did you like this video? If so, subscribe to our channel and share this with your friends.
And if you want even more free, awesome resources to help you reach your fitness goals, plus some updates that we only share over email, head over to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.